we're ready to go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this Friday evening. My name is McKaylee. I'm with Tattered Cover Bookstore. And first and foremost, I have to say thank you. Thank you to everyone who is joining us. This has been a crazy year. It's something that none of us ever expected. And for us independent bookstores and for local businesses in your area, it's been vital. Your support and your, whether that's a fiscal support, promoting us on social media, we could not have gotten through this year without you. For those of you who may not know, Tattered Cover Bookstore is a local independent bookstore in the Denver metro area in Colorado. And I love this store. I grew up on this store, and I'm not alone because the store has been open now for 50 years. That's right. It is Tattered Cover's 50th anniversary, which is a huge deal for a bookstore. And we wouldn't be here without you. We wouldn't be able to have amazing events like this one that we have tonight without the community support. So thank you for being a part of our virtual community. Hopefully, as the world continues in this trajectory that we're going right now, that we're able to gather in person soon-ish, question mark? I don't know, but I'm glad here that we could do it virtually in this fashion as well. And so I want to let you know a couple of things. First off, closed captioning is enabled for those who might need it on this video. There's a black bar down at the bottom of the screen with a button labeled CC on it, and you can use closed captioning there by clicking that button should you want it or need it. Also, just a little bit about Tattered Cover. Our stores are open. 3 out of our 4 stores right now. Our historic Lodo store is moving, as a lot of you know, downtown to McGregor Square across the street from Coors Field, which is very exciting. So right now, Lodo is closed, and we're preparing for the McGregor Square opening sometime in May. But our other 3 stores are open, and you can come in and visit us as long as you're wearing your mask over your mouth and your nose. You can come shop for about 90 minutes or so. Our website, though, that's open 24/7 for your shopping convenience. And so you can get all your bookish needs and Tattered Cover gear and everything alike at tatteredcover.com. Also, on tatteredcover.com, you can check out our upcoming events that we have. Like next Tuesday, we have a very special presentation celebrating Colorado's female trailblazers, Pat Schroeder and Dottie Lamb, which is going to be moderated by Brittany Peterson. And that is, like I said, Tuesday the 30th. You can register online at tatteredcover.com/event. But the event tonight is a very exciting one. I'm stoked for this because, you know, you read this book and you learn so much. I mean, I never took a science class in college. I finished all my AP classes, so I didn't have to take math. So this is something very out of my element, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. It brings out your sense of adventure, and I'm excited to celebrate the release of Miss Adventure with the author Jess Phoenix. She's the executive director and co-founder of the environmental scientific research organization Blueprint Earth. Since 2008, she's been a volcanologist, an extreme explorer, and a professional field scientist. She works with universities and major research institutions to study lava flows and natural hazards, perform climate change research on glaciers, and more. Jess is a fellow in the Explorers Club and the Royal Geographical Society, a featured scientist on Discovery and Science channels, and her writing has appeared on websites such as BBC Online, Daily Kos, and Medium, as well as in the Face of Current magazine and local print publications. It's my honor tonight to welcome Jess Phoenix, because she can now add author to that impressive resume that she's got going here. So we'll have her turn on her microphone and her video and join me here. Hi, Jess.
Oh my gosh, I am here.
Yay.
Yay, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. This is, like I said, very exciting. And I love that virtual events like this can connect us with people from all over talking about a variety of subjects. And yours is fascinating. I know that sounds geeky and silly for me to say, but truly this was out of my element for me, being a theater and an English major. Geology, what? Volcanoes? I don't know. So this was such a great introduction to that world, and I would love it. You have a reading prepared for us, so I would love it if you could give us a treat of your book for other future or current readers out there.
Sure. I'm excited to get to do a reading because, you know, it's virtual time and, you know, you want your first book tour to involve readings. So here we go. So this just the preface of what this is about. I'm going out onto an active lava flow field for the first time on Kilauea volcano in Hawaii. So here we go. I slammed the door of the truck and picked up my pack. Matt and I had made the hour-long drive to the edge of lava flow fields and were geared up to hike the rest of the way. Our objective for the day was to map some fresh lava flows that were burning a kipuka, or forested area that had been surrounded by new lavas. We also wanted to take a sample of the new lava for geochemical analysis in the lab. Since these flows were erupting at some distance from the summit magma chamber, understanding their chemistry and the minerals they contained would help us add to our knowledge of Kilauea's eruptions. Landing a helicopter on fresh lava flows is dangerous, so we had to reach our targets on foot. We set off into the flow fields, the lava underfoot fresher than anything I had yet seen. Undulating, glossy black coils of lava poured over the landscape. Matt told me the shiniest flows, the ones that looked wet on the surface, had erupted within the last week. Since they were dark black, the flows absorbed a large amount of heat from the sun that was beating down on us. We were close to the ocean, but the air hung heavy and still. As we hiked farther from the forested area where we'd parked, the lava swallowed everything in view. These were fluid pahoehoe flows, the lava forming intricate ropey designs interspersed with broad, smooth sections. Brittle crusts of almost pure volcanic glass lined some of the flow edges, with the surface of other sections already shattered into rough hexagons. A thin rivulet of sweat ran down my upper lip and around the corner of my mouth. My rolled bandana was serving its purpose as a headband, stopping sweat from reaching my eyes, but there was nothing to be done about the rest of my face. I glanced down again at the lava crunching beneath my boots, wondering why the temperature seemed to have rapidly shot up another 20 degrees. A thin red line was visible in the crack between two big flat pillows of gleaming black lava. It stretched the length of the crack. Heat radiated up. My feet sweltered in the two pairs of socks I'd put on under my thick work boots to avoid blisters. I squinted down at the red line and pushed my sunglasses onto my head. This wasn't a discolored or oxidized part of the lava flow. This was a tiny window into actual molten lava. The flow I had almost walked on was still flowing underneath. The solid black crust on top, newly formed and likely weak. Matt was a few yards away on a different part of the flow. I called him over, excited and flooded with adrenaline over narrowly avoiding plunging my boot into an active lava flow. He inspected the flow and said we would need to stay alert for others in the area. We turned and headed toward the ocean, trying to work our way across the flow field to locate a fully fluid, active flow for sampling. As soon as we moved away from the tongue of the flow with the glowing red crack, the temperature dropped perceptibly. Before long, we noticed we were paralleling an area that was fresher than what we were walking on. The lavas looked as if they had only stopped flowing a few hours before, and Matt spotted something in the distance. He pointed it out to me, saying it was a skylight. I wanted to take a picture of it, so we carefully made our way as close as we could. The skylight opened into the bowels of Earth. About 3 feet across and 1 foot high at the widest point, the skylight was an area where the roof of a lava tube had collapsed enough to provide a view into the tube itself. A cascade of lava was rushing toward the ocean in a torrent, and I could make out occasional chunks of solid lava within the molten rock flooding the tube. Here was the planet, pouring out the same elements contained in stardust, reshaping itself right in front of me. I was a voyeur, witnessing an ancient act too raw and powerful for humans to comprehend. Creation and destruction, two halves of the same whole. The process would repeat again and again until our world's fiery core cooled and convected no more. There you go.
Oh my gosh, it just jumps right in. Like you do such a good job of marrying the science with it, but the emotion and bringing the audience and the reader into the moment, but then talking about how so much bigger this science that you do is than all of us, you know, and the infinite possibilities that have happened and are going to happen. It's really quite a wonderful Mirroring of all those things. I want to ask, where did this fascination come from? When did you get bit by this bug, and how has it developed into the career you have today?
Well, I spent most of my childhood in Colorado. So I grew up going to the Tattered cover, and it was amazing even back then. And so I lived in Colorado from 1990 to 2000. So it would be nice to be able to say, oh, yeah, it was growing up by the Rockies, but it totally wasn't. There was a geology class at my high school. I went to Mullen there in Denver, but I didn't take it. So for me, this was something that I really chanced across in college. And I was attending Smith College, and I had what now would be classified as depression. Now it's like, duh, of course you were depressed. But, back then it was like, oh, what's wrong with me? I can't get out of bed and go to class. So I pretty much failed out of college. And I had a sympathetic academic dean who said, I see that you're struggling. You need to take classes somewhere else before we'll let you back into Smith. I'll give you a retroactive medical withdrawal. So I got a second chance to basically get my gears turning again. And I took classes at UMass Amherst, and I said, I'm going to take classes that interest me. And that's it. That was the only requirement. So I took Native American peoples of North America. I took poetry. I took a memoir class called Literature of Travel and Place. And I took
Hey, I wonder if that was helpful.
I know, right? It's actually cool that the professor of that class is somebody who's a family friend who then also wrote one of the blurbs for my book. And I'm like, I owe her so much. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and Maddie Blaze, she's a fantastic writer, but she never gave up on me either, despite the stumbles. But I took this geology class, and it was just intro geology, Wednesdays from 6 to 10 p.m., like totally prime time for a college student. And I was working 2 jobs and going to school full time. So I was like every class sitting there, like trying to prop my head up on my hands, like, please don't fall asleep. But this professor delivered the material that was the most engaging thing, like why are mountains where they are? And why do earthquakes happen? And how do volcanoes erupt? I mean, these are big questions. He delivered it in a monotone, facing away from the class, writing on an overhead projector. So 4 hours of monologue once a week. And I still didn't care. I was like, geology is the coolest thing ever. But I didn't have enough time to change majors. So I actually ended up going back after I got a history degree. I went back and did a master's in geology. So it was not something that just happened at a young age. So I tell people, if you need to take a different direction as you get older, that's okay.
Absolutely. And I mean, what a great story to hear that it took a little bit to find out what truly spoke to your heart, even in a monotonous voice was talking about the coolest things. So I have to ask then too, what compelled you after all these years in your career and all of these adventures that you've had to finally think, oh, I need to write a book about this? Where did that impetus come from?
Well, I had started my college journey thinking I was going to be an English major. And anybody watching who went to high school with me will tell you I was totally obsessed with T.S. Eliot. I still am. I have T.S. Eliot quotes tattooed on my forearms. That's a whole thing.
I know that. I was going to talk about it afterwards, but you brought it up. I was like, oh, it's T.S. Eliot, because this English major was very excited about that.
Yeah, so you get it. So I was my obsession, and it was. I always loved words, love language. I mean, I still do. It just the wordplay that you can create, particularly with poetry, but really anywhere. Great writing is great writing. And knowing Maddie Blaze, a memoir writer extraordinaire, it was always like, well, Maddie could give me advice. And I took that class and, maybe someday. And then it was finally, I reached a point where people I would talk to would say, I can't believe you did that. That sounds amazing. And I'm like, why don't we have more narratives of field scientists, like modern field scientists? And why aren't the popular narratives of what a scientist is and who they are? Why does that not include women? I mean, why is our best concept of a field scientist Indiana Jones? He's not even real. So it was like, okay, I think I can put this out in the world, because people, especially young people, need to see that there is a huge diversity in the scientific community. And hey, scientists aren't just lab nerds. We are also outdoor nerds.
And I love hearing that. And that is something that you bring up a lot in your book. There's a variety of stories, some of them that boiled my blood over the sexism that you face in the industry. Can you talk a little bit more about that and the importance, just elaborate a little bit more on the importance of bringing diverse voices, female voices into the sciences?
You definitely do have a bit of a stereotype to overcome. And I mean, historically, the people who were thought of as explorers, even scientific explorers, were far too often older white men. And I mean, nothing against older white men. I have some amazing mentors who supported me really, really well. But the fact of the matter is that if you only listen to one sort of voice, you only get one sort of perspective. So by increasing the way that science is portrayed and who it's for, by opening those doors, you get basically all of our brains firing on all the cylinders. And that's what we need if we're going to address big picture 21st century questions. I mean, like climate change or growing population or the technology innovations that we can't even keep up with. I mean, we need every perspective available. This is an all hands on deck effort.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think that that's a really wonderful perspective of that. If we start looking at only one lane, we're not going to see the vast majority of possibilities that come there. That being said, too, one of the things that in your past and what you're working on now is this activism for the subjects that you're passionate about with your organization and, you know, previously running for Congress, along with this book. So I want to ask, how does this book play into giving voice to those issues that you feel so passionately about?
Well, I think what I've come to realize, and of course, you know, I'm in my late 30s, so I will have more revelations as I age, as we all do. But as I've gotten older and moved through my career, what I've realized is that we have these kind of artificial limitations that we put around ourselves and each other because we live so divorced from the outdoors typically. I mean, a lot of us, I'd say most of us, spend most of our days inside, and we get outside maybe for some recreation, particularly in Colorado. That's pretty popular. But at the same time, we don't remember like where we all came from. And fundamentally, as humans, we are all born as explorers, and we come out of the womb and we are shoving things in our mouth to try to see if they taste all right. And that is the scientific method at work. So as human beings, fundamentally, as Homo sapiens, we are inherently inclined to be curious. And it's really important that we emphasize that for kids and that we nurture it as they get older, and that we tell adults like, yes, being curious is essential. If you're not still asking questions as you get older, you can definitely get bored. And that's not the all hands on deck approach. Citizen science is a growing avenue where even people who are not professional scientists can help astronomers identify new stars and planetary bodies, or where you have, there was a big effort about cataloging birds just a couple of weeks ago. The whole thing was like, okay, everybody who can see this message basically worldwide, go out and take an inventory of all the birds you see over the weekend and write them in this app so that we know how bird populations are doing around the world. So there were so many ways for people to be engaged. And with the book, my whole message was ignorance is the disease and curiosity is the cure. And we as humans, we can all work towards that. We can all keep those curiosity fires burning.
Thank you. Can we get like a bumper sticker or something of that? Ignorance is the disease, curiosity is the cure. That being said, though, how has COVID been? As somebody who so loves being outdoors, so loves traveling, how has this year impacted you and your work?
Well, it really put the kibosh on my nonprofits expeditions. So my husband Carlos and I co-founded an org called Blueprint Earth, and we create blueprints of Earth's ecosystems. And we do that by going across disciplines. So it's geology, biology, hydrology, atmospheric science, and of course, engineering and data analysis. And we're trying to basically see how environments function as living systems. And we've all heard about, you know, the food web and those sort of things where animals are dependent on each other. Well, guess what? That works for microbes, and even the atmosphere has an effect on what goes on beneath. So if we have that understanding, that's how we can be more resilient in the times that are ahead. And also when we do natural resources projects like natural gas extraction or mining, we still need those things at the moment. So until we've got a way to synthesize them, we have to make our extraction efforts more green, more sustainable. And we can do that if we understand how the pieces fit together in the first place. And of course, someday we want to go to the moon or to Mars and maybe stay there for a while. So if you want to be able to build these things, we need that understanding at a systems level. So we haven't been able to take students out, which is the core component aside from just the straight research that we do. So it's been a year since I've had students out in the field in our Mojave Desert research area. And it's really a bummer. I did get to travel a bit. It was very weird because it was, during COVID. This was like late August through October. I went and was filming a TV show for the Discovery Channel, and it's so exciting. Okay, Discovery, the channel of like Alaskan bush people for the last several years, that's like all they show. They are now actually having a show co-hosted by me and my friend Stell, who is a person of color. So I'm like, Discovery's going for diversity, and not just diversity, people who know what they're talking about, which is like, yay. So I got to travel all around Europe and try to film during COVID, which was really difficult. I don't recommend it, but I was glad we got to do it because we did get access to some places that we probably wouldn't have had if it had been full tourist season. So on one hand, it was bad. On the other hand, it was good. And everybody stayed safe. And that was the main thing, is that our 20 something person crew, we made it there and back. And I was the only one who got COVID, but I got GI COVID at the very, very end. On the way back on the plane, I got sick. So I was like, serves me right. And I didn't have a bad version of it. So it was like, at least I got it and not some of the older folks on the crew who had comorbidities. So I guess all things considered, it was the best case scenario.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing better now. That's really good news. And what are you looking forward to? You know what I mean? What projects or plans do you have coming up that you're like, itching to get to?
Well, I really want to go back to our field research area. It's just in the desert. There are lava flows in our research area. I mean, we've got bobcats and bighorn sheep and toads and beautiful wildflowers and flowing water in this one area of the desert. And people think it's just dead, but it's not. And the spring is the best time. So I'm just like itching to get our quarantine buddies. We have one family we see and have seen the whole time. And they're also, one of them's a biologist, one is an engineer. And we're like, let's go out to the field area and just see it. So in the short term, that. In the longer term, I'm supposed to be working on another book proposal. That's part of it. And I'm also working on pitching a couple of different TV shows that are educational and scientific and also historic, actually. There's some cool angles to these. There's a lot of nuance because I don't like being a one-trick pony.
I don't know a lot of scientists that, and some of them like to stay in their lane, but even within their lane, they're like, I want to try this and explore this. Again, curiosity and discovery is who we are as people. That being said, that curiosity led you on so many different adventures, collecting stories throughout your career. How on God's good earth did you decide what to put in the book and what to take out? What did that editing process look like? Because I'm sure you've got plenty of more stories that you didn't put in there.
I had some amazing advice because I actually, at the urging of Maddie Blaze, I decided to do the thing that was motivating me. I need deadlines. And the thing that motivated me was, she said, why don't you just get your MFA while you're writing the book? And I went, okay. So I went to Goucher College and did their low residency MFA program in nonfiction writing. So my very first semester there, my mentor was a writer named Susanna Lassard. And she said, just make a timeline. and I was like, oh, that's so simple, but it's so elegant. So I said, okay, my first experience with geology was when I was an undergrad. And then I started working at the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory in 2008. And, then I just basically plotted it all out. And then I thought, well, there's more expeditions here that I could include, but I kind of thought I need to keep it to ones that are sort of self-contained, like Blueprint Earth. We've been on like close to 30 expeditions now. So, I mean, yes, that's a lot of material, but it also means a lot of editing and a lot of culling of the trips that were less eventful. So I was like, okay, let's keep these manageable. Like I can tell the story in about 30 something pages, and that'll be the first book. We'll see. I had so many more since this book ends in like spring 2016. And since then, I've been to like Tanzania and Indonesia, and I circumnavigated Iceland with Margaret Atwood for a documentary about her life. Yeah.
I'm sorry, wait. What?
Yes.
I mean, what an incredible experience. That could be a book in of itself.
It could be, and it was
like
so
Iceland
weird.
with Margaret Atwood, instead of Tuesdays with Maury,
Yeah.
Iceland with Margaret, wow.
Yeah, and it was it's so funny because she is like one of the wittiest people that you can imagine. I mean, like razor sharp wit too, and she wields it expertly. And of course, 10th grade me thinking about my English class where we read Handmaid's Tale was like, oh, I can't believe this. But they called me, this company knew me through the Explorers Club, and they called me a week after I finished my race for Congress and said, hey, can you come circumnavigate Iceland next week? And I was like, okay. They needed a volcanologist who could be good on camera and could keep up with Margaret and her former partner, Graham. He's deceased now, but Graham Gibson is a fantastic writer in his own right. And they have their whole family, and they go on these expedition cruises that are basically like a more hardcore cruise, but they're still for the public. And so they go on these like to Iceland and all up through the Arctic, and they've done that with their whole family, like Margaret Atwood's daughter, and then her grandkid was there, and I got to meet the whole family, and her sister is amazing, by the way, but it was so cool. And I just remember at one moment we were filming for the documentary, and this is the part that was actually in the documentary, is me and Graham and Margaret, and we're in a Zodiac, and we are north of the Arctic Circle, just like putting around, looking at basalt, lava, and birds, because she and Graham are experts in birds. They love birds. So they were educating me about birds, and I was educating them about lava.
That's so cool. Man, I'm excited now for this documentary. I have to ask too, like you said there about someone who's good on camera. Can you talk about that a little bit more, and maybe where those skills developed in your life? Because it's not just scientists. It's, not everybody has that skill. And in our Zoom world, that's kind of having to be something that they're working on. Can you talk a little bit more about how you worked on that and developed those skills?
Well, I was an introvert in a lot of ways until 9th grade. And I have Mullen High School's mandatory freshman speech and debate class to thank for being able to get up and talk in front of people. I mean, I was paralyzed with fear initially, but then everybody has to do it. And the teacher was Mr. Frank Safera, who is legendary in debate circles far and wide. I mean, all across the US, because he literally invented a type of debate.
Yeah, and I competed against him and his team, and it wasn't, all the time.
Yeah, so I started doing extemp speaking. I did US extemp, and then I went into, I did duo, and I did, I tried poetry a little bit, but then I ended up doing cross-examination debate. So
my language, that was like forensics was my whole high school experience. That was like duo, humor, drama, oratory, like all of that. That's so cool to hear. That's awesome that was such an influential experience. Please continue.
Yeah.
I was just relating.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. Which school did you go to? Now I have to ask.
Oh, I went to Cherokee Trail High School. It came out in 2003, so I was one of the first graduating classes. It was very.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Well, yeah, I loved the debate team, and it was amazing. And just as a testament to what the school does, I think we have 2 debate coaches at least from my graduating class year of 2000. And my former debate partner is now a lawyer who argues in front of the Supreme Court. So killing it. And really it taught me to be able to construct an argument really, really well, and to be fearless, to get up there, put it out there, and go, you know what, you don't like it, take it or leave it. And you just do the best you can, and that you have support, you have people cheering you on and helping you to do better. And that team environment, when you're learning how to speak in front of people, is really, really important. So if anybody has kids who are like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to do speech and debate, like urge them to do the speech team, because it was some of my best memories growing up were doing the speech and debate stuff.
That's so, like I said, that speaks to my heart, and that's so wonderful to hear. It's a great suggestion for parents and kids alike to try something like that. One last question before we move to our audience Q&A. You just mentioned being fearless and learning how to do that. How has your career helped you combat fear and be more fearless in your life?
It's helped a lot. And I actually think a lot of it comes from playing sports and doing speech and debate. It's those competitive situations, because the pressure you feel when you are in front of an erupting volcano and you're like, I got to go in and get a sample, and this thing is shooting out lava bombs, or there's a roiling 2000-degree Fahrenheit plus lava lake 150 feet below me, and I cannot mess up right now. If you have competed or you've put pressure on yourself and you know how you respond when the pressure is on, that is like the best crucible for learning. And so now, like, I had to, for the TV show, it's called Hunting Atlantis. It'll come out in like May, I think, on
I was going to ask you later, but yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah, that's what it's called. But so people know to look for it. It is about Atlantis, but with science and history. So I do the science part. But I had to rappel, and I suggested doing this to the crew. They needed a catastrophe for Croatia. And I said, oh, you know what's in Croatia? The world's third largest sinkhole. And I said, I will rappel down into it to collect samples. And that's what we did. And I will tell you, the thing is, from the surface where the collapse started, it's full of water partway down, but it is literally 3 times deeper than the Empire State Building is tall. And so I'm like, yep, gonna go over the edge now. Here we go. And it's just, you get that same game face. You're like, I'm gonna go and shoot this free throw, or I'm gonna do this pole vault, or I'm gonna get up and make this speech. It's that same, like, it's all or nothing, time to shine.
That's awesome. It makes me think it's like some amazing race challenge that they would have people do that. That's incredible. Well, I feel like I could keep asking you questions about your history and your stories, now also knowing about your speech debate history. But I want to turn it over to our audience. So a lot of you have actually already been very active in the chat. Some of them saying nice things about it's past midnight here in Scotland. I'm excited to be listening to this talk. Such a great read. Jess is truly amazing human being and worth supporting. So many nice comments here. But I want to ask you guys, if you have questions for Jess about her book, her science, her Blueprint Earth, not her Blueprint Earth, but her organization, Blueprint Earth, please ask them in the comments below. I think a really good one here is, what advice do you have for young students wanting to get into geology? Because that's not necessarily something like they make us take biology, chemistry, physics, but maybe narrowing that focus a little bit more. What advice do you have?
I would say, and of course, this is a caveat, like, ask your parents, but if you can get a rock hammer, they're not very expensive. They're between about $20 and $30. You can get them on Amazon. Sometimes Home Depot or Lowe's will carry like some that would work, but a rock hammer is different than a normal hammer, like for hanging pictures. Normal hammers, the head will be steel, but the handle is like wood or plastic. Those can break because they're 2 separate pieces. A rock hammer, all one solid piece of drop forged steel. And with a rock hammer, that's how you can start to read the secrets of the universe that are written in every single rock. And you got to wear eye protection. So get shatterproof glasses, goggles. Do not do like sunglasses, because those can shatter wrong and you need your eyes. They're a good thing to have. So get a rock hammer. And if it's a young kid, obviously supervise your young kid. But what they can do then is break open rocks, either on their own or with your help. And even if you're an adult, get a rock hammer. It's so cool, because what you see on the outside of a rock is weathered and eroded, and it doesn't tell the full story. I mean, it could be discolored. You could crack open like a grayish rock and inside find beautiful blue or green or red minerals. And some of them you can see with the naked eye, and some of them you might want to pick up a cheap hand lens. It looks like, there we go. It's like a jeweler's lens. And this is a really cheap one. I have a nice one, but I don't know where it is. But they're like, anywhere from $8 to $20. And you hold it up to your eye, you hold the rock up to the lens, and you look towards the light. And that way you can see the beauty of the minerals and the crystals. And it teaches you to look for the detail as well as the big picture. And that's what geology is. It's going between, wow, look at the mountains, and ooh, like, what kind of rock is this? So that's a good way to start. And you can pick up a rock and mineral ID book online at your favorite bookstore. Tattered cover, that would be my first recommendation here. But I'm sure they can order great ones too if they don't have the one you want in stock. But yes, do that, and you will be able to endlessly entertain yourself on hikes, on road trips. I mean, all over.
That's amazing. And also, for anybody in the Denver metro area, the Denver Nature and Science Museum has an amazing gems and minerals exhibit too, that I remember as a kid going to, and that was where like first fascinations for a lot of my friends came from. So that's also another way, but there's nothing quite like doing it yourself, I think. So someone here wants to know, any chance of new episodes on your Catastrophe podcast? I really loved that. And your husband was great on there as well.
Yes, I'm trying. The pandemic has screwed me up in several ways. So Carlos and I are in the middle of adopting a teenager. And yeah, so we've been like extra distracted. We were trying to get our house ready and trying to make sure, we did all the things to foster and then adopt. And there's a lot of hoops you jump through. So they're now living with us. They've been here for 2 weeks. So we're moving along, but the adoption won't take place for a few more months. But as we get used to that, and as things resume sort of a rhythm, then I have the next episode like 80% written. And it's really cool. It has to do with a volcano. Like this time, the first season was all, things, big catastrophes. I tried to say that they were caused by human error. Those were what I focused on. This season is like no holds barred, and there's going to be a few volcanoes. That is for sure.
Can you just tell some people who might not be familiar with your podcast what it is? I think they got a bit of a hint, but if you got a line or something you want to share there.
Oh, sure. Well, basically we just try to figure out what went wrong in historic catastrophes. And Carlos calls me omnicidal because if you tell me where you live, I will tell you how the earth is going to kill you. And I'm like, okay, so I'm basically like in my head all the time thinking like, ooh, that could murder us. And so I said, why don't I make a show about it? And it's, just a very bootstrapped podcast. And Carlos and I do it all ourselves. We did get a producer for this upcoming season, but then I didn't get myself together. So when it gets going again, I'd say look for it after the premiere of the Atlantis show. So I would say like early summer, and I will announce it on my website, on Catastrophe's website. It's catastrophepod.com. And I will also put it up on all my social media. So thank you for supporting it and for caring about it. I've had a lot of good feedback. It's a lot of work.
Podcasting is a huge amount of work, more so than people expect. So thank you for taking the time for that art form as well, and that storytelling platform. I want to ask, this is another really great question, is what are your feelings on the marriage of science and media, and what are the challenges you face when combining the two?
So we absolutely need to have a close relationship between those two. And for years, we've seen that science has done itself a disservice by retreating from the media glare. And that means that the narrative was often shaped by people who didn't actually understand the science. So scientists, and I would actually be hugely in favor of scientist graduate programs. Like if you're doing master's or a PhD and hopefully your bachelor's, that you would get some sort of media training in college and or grad school, because knowing how to communicate why what you're doing is important is key. I always tell my students that I work with via Blueprint Earth, I say, learn how to explain why what you do matters in 30 seconds or fewer. Otherwise, no one is going to sit around and listen to you talk about it. It could be the most interesting thing on earth, but unless you can make people care about it effectively, you're not going to get that funding to do the research. So science and media can work really well together, but you also have to be careful. You have to manage what you're saying. You have to understand the implications of what you're saying and bounce things off of friends and family and colleagues, like run this stuff by them if you're going to have to talk to the media and you're a scientist, because they will tell you, that didn't make sense, or, oh my God, you mean this? And you'll say, no, that's not what I meant at all. So just use other people as your sounding board, particularly if they are not scientists. And if you are watching media, if you're a media consumer, tell stations that you watch, channels and platforms, tell them you want more good science programming, because they will only fund what the public wants.
It's all too true. So I like this question too. In your abundance of free time, what are you reading or watching and enjoying during the pandemic?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. I have a massive bookshelf just to my right.
I love show and tells.
And so I was trying to come up with some books. Our teenager has to read some books for class, and I pulled out a handful and was like, here, John Irving or Agatha Christie. I was like throwing them all out there. So actually, I'm just about to start rereading John Irving's Avenue of Mysteries, which is I think it's his most recent one. I think he's coming out with another one. Okay. Yeah. And John Irving's my favorite author. So I was just like, I'm about to get back into that. I have it sitting next to my bed. and watching. I am obsessed with the show I just finished. It is the new Star Trek Discovery. It is amazing. I mean, I don't care if you've never watched Star Trek or if you're like, I'm not a sci-fi person, you need to watch it. It's 3 seasons and like I'm into the 3rd season and I'm just like, oh. And of course I love The Expanse too, because sci-fi is great. And The Expanse is just groundbreaking in every sense of the word. So that's what I've been nerding out on.
Well, can I ask you a little bit more about your science fiction fun? Because I actually have some scientists in my life that get really picky with their science fiction. Do you feel similarly? Or are you able to just kind of be like, put the science in a drawer and you just enjoy the world building?
It depends on how egregious the violations are. Like for movies, I get asked a lot about Volcano that had Tommy Lee Jones in it from '97, and then also the same year, because Hollywood does everything in twos, Dante's Peak with Pierce Brosnan. And yeah, Pierce Brosnan. That's how all volcanologists look. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's totally what I thought of.
Just like James Bond.
Oh yeah, exactly. I tell everyone, yes, I played Pierce Brosnan in the sequel, but no, that one actually is more scientifically accurate than Volcano was. I mean, Volcano had, I love Tommy Lee Jones, but please, it had the La Brea tar pits here in Los Angeles erupting. That cannot happen. You will not have lava flowing down Wilshire Boulevard like ever. That is not a thing. And that you cannot stop lava flows with like a bus or concrete barricades. That does not work. So if you want better science and volcanoes, just stick to Dante's Peak. That's really, that's my pro tip.
Now that's where I'm at. Like my volcanologist friend told me that these two, this one's the better one of the two. I love that though. I bet your brain also, with your what word did you use before? I apologize. With the catastrophizing and the
omnicidal.
Thank you, omnicidal. With like 2012 or like those, or Day After Tomorrow and all of those. I bet your brain has a field day with those.
It's quite the event. I remember I had just taken a couple of geology classes in college when the core came out, and I got invited to like a special premiere screening in Western Massachusetts because I think the writer lived there. And I just remember walking out of that movie going, oh God, like, no, they're not hidden dinosaurs and crystals under the Earth's surface. Like, that's not what's going on down there. That one made me weep a little, but now I'm friends with an actor, because, it's LA. I'm friends with an actor named John Billingsley, who's been in Star Trek Enterprise, and like, he's been in every movie. He's one of those character guys. He plays a scientist in 2012. And I'm like, John, I cannot tell you what I think about 2012. And he goes, I don't care. The check already cleared. So when you look at it that way, like for entertainment purposes, it's fine. But there are definitely times where I'm like, oh, this is painful.
That's awesome. Here's another one. Are there bucket list volcanoes that you haven't yet explored?
Oh my God, yes. So just think about it this way. On any given day, there are about 45 volcanoes currently erupting, like give or take a few. So that means right now, you may have heard about Fagradosfjall in Iceland. You may know about Etna in Sicily. You may know about Kilauea in Hawaii, but there's also like 42 others at least that are currently erupting. So yes, there are like thousands on the list, but I would say my highest priorities are Mount Michael, which is on Saunders Island. It's 2 degrees north of the Antarctic Circle. It's in the middle of the Pacific. They just discovered that there's a lava lake on that volcano in the summer of 2019 using satellites. No human has ever, not now, not in the past, this was never inhabited by people, this little island, but no human has ever seen this lava lake. And I was trying to get an expedition together to go to this very remote place. It would take at least a month. And we need multiple summit attempts because this thing is freezing. It's covered in glaciers, and yet there's a roiling lava lake on top. And it's just like with COVID, that pushed everything back. And I did not feel right asking for people to fund an expedition when, billions of people are potentially going to get sick or die. Well, hopefully just millions die, but it was a pretty dire circumstance we were in. So I was like, I can't keep planning this expedition. So Mount Michael is my number one. But I also really, really, really need to get to Antarctica because that's the 7th continent for me. And I want to go see Mount Erebus there, which is also a lava lake down in Antarctica. So if you don't think nature has anything exciting left, wait till you've seen like roiling lava and nothing but an icy expanse all around.
Science is cool. That's all I'm gonna say on that front. On a personal note, have you ever been to the island of Ometepe in Nicaragua and seen those two volcanoes at all?
No, I've only been to Masaya in Nicaragua. So
Okay.
I need to go back down because I now know the Minister of Culture and Tourism, and she's like, anytime you want to come. So, you know, when we can travel safely, I will be, because I know what you're talking about, and that just looks so fascinating.
Yeah, I've actually climbed both of those volcanoes. Like that was a thing I did. That was in college when I did. I just was like, that's like my one little experience, and I got to ask if she's been there. So
That's so cool.
that's awesome. So one final question. I hate to.
She got quiet.
I muted myself. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
My bad, guys. One final question before we end, because I'm thoroughly enjoying myself, and I know our audiences as well. So we could keep going, but we want to honor your time tonight and theirs. But this is a question we love to ask at Tattered Cover, and you can interpret it any way that you want. But what did this book teach you?
I would say it taught me to really think about the impact of what I'm doing, and can I pass what I think is the impact on to the people who are going to read it. It really, it made me say like, okay, like I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, but can I give words to that? Can I give that something concrete that I can point to and say like, it's this? And that was the thing, is to not just write something like an essay, like a scientific paper or an essay that, you know, write a persuasive essay on whatever. It's not that. This book is about me, but it's not about me. It's about what everyone else gets out of reading it. So it was kind of cool. It was definitely basically showing me what I could look like to other people, and realizing that, you know, a bunch of people watching this probably know me when I was like super awkward and I wore like blue eyeshadow to school every day for 4 years, and it was a whole look. But it just shows us that like everything that we go through in life adds up to making us who we are at the moment that we're thinking about it. So everything is a valuable experience. Just think about, you know, will this make a good story if it sucks? Because odds are it probably will.
Jess, this has been so much fun, and I don't have really another word for it. Fun, enlightening, informative. Thank you for this book. Thank you for the work that you do in other forms of media. But like I said before, this book is such a great introduction, even for the non-scientist. I'm now a believer that we have scientists in all of us at this sense, and then we're all explorers. But I want to encourage everybody to get their copy of Misadventure, which I love that title, by the way. I didn't even get to the title. Oh, it's a little blurry.
No, it's blurry. It's the background. Oh, well,
yeah,
it's here.
Okay. It's there. She's got it. But we also have copies at Tattered Cover and at tatteredcover.com, so you can get your copy today. Jess, I want to give you a chance to remind people who you are, where they can find you online, and anything else that you want to say before we close out tonight.
I would just say, if any of you all want signed copies and you get them through Tattered Cover, we should probably figure out a way to let me know. I have a website. You can get in touch with me through there. It's jess@volcanojess.com. If you want a signed copy, I'll get some book plates so that I can send them out to people. Okay, McKelly says she's got plans.
Well, I was gonna say, like, we're working with publisher to get book plates, so we can make sure we get signed copies that way too.
Great. So yeah, don't think that just because I'm in LA and you're elsewhere that you can't get a signed copy. That is a whole thing. It's a process. But yeah, you can find me. I mean, I'm on Instagram. It's at volcano.jess. My Facebook page, I've got two. I'm trying to merge them. Facebook is annoying. It's, you know, just look up Jess Phoenix. You'll see me. And then if you really like science, but also politics, Twitter is Jess Phoenix 2018, because I ran for Congress. But yeah, otherwise, check out volcanojess.com, or if you have a young person in your life, or if you want to come out when we resume research expeditions, it's blueprintearth.org for that. And we do take donations, just saying, you know, if you or someone you know likes field science, fund that, and you're funding future scientists.
I like that, funding future scientists. Yes. So once again, I want to encourage everybody to get a copy of Misadventure at tattercover.com. And like I said, we're working with Jess and her publisher to make sure we can get signed ones and book plates for you all as well. Thank you guys again for supporting local businesses over this time, independent bookstores, scientists alike. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. Jess, if you'll stay on while I end us up here. Thank you guys again. You can check out more events at tatteredcover.com/event and see what we have going on here. Stay safe, everybody. Happy reading. Bye.